Hey there everyone, it's James from Singletrack magazine, and today we're building up a Deviate Highlander 150mm travel trail bike. We've got some amazing components from some really cool brands. Let's see how we get on. This has got the new 150mm linkage in it, which makes the back end apparently a bit more progressive, so it should work a lot better with core shocks. Look at this linkage. Wonderful piece of engineering. That out there. A little bit tricky. That drops in there. Hopefully this won't be a hugely ham-fisted attempt, and the bike won't fall apart the first time I ride it. Oof. It's tight. So we've got the Marzocchi Bomber CR coil shock to go in this frame. Loose bit on the headset there, on the top cut. Nice Cane Creek Hellbender 70 headset going in. Time to press them in. Just pulled it back in. There we go. This is going to be a long-term test bike for me. It's going to see life with lots of different components. One of those things is going to have some new forks coming in it at some point. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this regular crown race, and I'm just going to cut it, turn it into a split crown race. And the reason I'm doing this is basically having a split crown race makes them much, much easier to put on and off forks if you're doing it lots of times. And they now just drop on there. So this is an extra large frame. It reaches about 500. Previous bike I was running, it had a reach of about 505. That was a size large. That had a 40mm stem on it, dropping down to a 35mm stem, 32mm stem, sorry. So the reach should be about the same. Got a couple of spaces going to put on, give a bit of adjustability, so I'm not tied in to one steerer length. There we go. Just taking off all the rough edges. Right, bearing in, top cap on, stem. There we go, forks fitted, shock fitted. Let's put some bars on. I had Thompson bars and stem on a very old Orange 5, like 10, 12 years ago. And one of the options was you could go for the Thompson upgrade pack with a Thompson seat post, Thompson carbon bars and a Thompson stem. So when the opportunity to run these came up on this build, it was an absolute no-brainer. Because I mean, the design has barely changed on the stem, but these bars are new and they just look amazing. Ben and Chris, who designed the frame behind the brand Deviate, they met while they were out guiding in the Alps. So the bikes are really durable, and one of the nice things about it is it's got a nice threaded bottom bracket, and this is a 73mm bottom bracket shell, and to get the correct chain line, just need the one spacer on the drive side, and that's supplied by Deviate. ISCG05 mounts. Great for vaulting chain devices. So one of the reasons why I got this is because of the bash guard on there. When you're going over rocky terrain, anything that can be a bit of extra protection between your chain ring and the rocks, it's always a good thing. And what's quite interesting about this build is not really through any particular design, we've ended up with something that has no SRAM and no Shimano on it, which is novel. We've got E13 cranks, E13 bottom bracket, TRP drivetrain and brakes. Yeah, quite a rarity. Nice little bearing preload adjuster, means that we can remove any play that might make its way into the bottom bracket, into the bearings. I have already worked out the correct chain line for this, which I think on this bike is 52 millimeters. Has to be in line with the idler, but you've got a whole bunch of different spacers and what have you on here. You can flip the direction of the chainring so that you can get everything lined up properly. What we've got here is a very nice TRP TR12 rear mech, developed in conjunction with Aaron Gwynn's mechanic. John Hall's input is to develop the Hall lock, and that's this lock here, which just prevents the mech rotating around this point here, in addition to the clutch, which stops the lower cage moving. Screw it on. All of the cabling runs in this channel on the underside of the top tube, which adds a bit of stiffness to the frame, but it also, when you're looking at it from the side on, means that it's nice, clean, clutter-free design. Also means that the only section of cable routing I need to do is this little bit here. So see how we get on with this. Right, we now need a shifter. It's a rather large shifter, but most of that will be hidden. One of the nice features about this is you can adjust really precisely where you want your triggers to be. Nice touch. Just slide that on roughly to there. Should just slide straight through, just like that. Feed this through here. I will worry about the fine tuning of it all later. Fortunately, these TRP Slate T4s have got a split hinge, split clamp, so it'll be fairly straightforward to change if I want to. So these are the Evo models, even though it doesn't say Evo anywhere on the packaging. They are actually the Evo models, so any of the updates that have been made to the G-spec brakes, the higher power downhill ones, the same modifications updates have been made to these, so they've got the new thinner brake hose. So this is 180 post mount on the back, 180mm rotors that we're going to be running, so it can go, the caliper can just screw straight on. Slide that on there. So the lever remains unchanged for the Highline 7. It's got this flexible 360-degree ball joint that can go wherever you want it, position where you want it. Plays nicely with other controls. Right, I actually had a chance to ride this frame, or not this particular frame, but ride this frame, a pre-production version of it last year. And one of the changes that was made was they put a new brake hose mount in, because they were getting some paint wear on the top of this stay. Yeah, just nice to see that things do get changed sometimes between production and pre-production and production. I'm going to crack on with the fitting the tyres and the cush core to the rims. That's how you work. Tyre on. Around one side, just like that, and then it pops onto the other side. Work it all the way, put the bead into the channel on the rim all the way, just give us a bit more slack. And just get the tyre. I've had valve cores get gunked up with sealant and stuff, so I like to keep them as clean as possible, so I tend to leave a little bit of the bead off the tyre, put the sealant in, then put the last bit of the bead on the tyre. There we go. So one other benefit of cush core, which is not something that you come across in everyday life, is that pumping your tyres up becomes a relatively straightforward affair, because it's already forcing the bead up onto where it wants to be, so you can get away usually without using a compressor. Here goes. Just like that. There's one done. Let's do the other one while we're on a roll. So here we've got the rather lovely and shiny E13 Helix R cassette, 9-tooth to 50-tooth, giving a 556% range. I've had one of these before, and I think the way that they go together is genius. So it goes on a SRAM XD driver. You slot the two larger cogs as a unit, they go on, tighten them up, and then this slots on, lock it in, twist it round, and it means that you can get away with a 9-tooth cog on the back, whereas normally a SRAM XD driver or a new Shimano micro spline, they can only go down to a 10 because you need to get a lock ring in there. So now I just need to line the teeth up. There we go, just like that. Let's just tighten this up and we're good to go. Fitting the rear rotor now. So you may notice that the rotor is 6-bolt, but the rear hub is centre lock. Fortunately, DT Swiss wheels, they all come with a little centre lock adapter. So it's just a case of putting the adapter on, put the rotor on, put this little thing there, and then that. Just lines up and tightens up. There we go. And it's just a case of tightening this up. .203mm rotor on the front, just because. Just put this on. Good. Let's put that on. So you may be wondering why I'm mucking around with the front brake mount again, having already fitted it. After I put the front wheel in, I noticed that the rotor wasn't lined up to the caliper, so I've got the spaces in the wrong way basically, so I'm just putting those on again. I should just reiterate here that I am in no way claiming to be a professional mechanic, and I just love riding bikes, and yeah, if you're in any way unsure of anything, get along to your local bike shop, because they do this for a living. Yeah, so there's absolutely there's no shame in admitting that you made a mistake and getting it wrong, and getting someone else to help you. So there we go, that looks a bit better. So these are the Ergon GFR1s developed with Tani Seagrave, well Tani and Chaos Seagrave, and they are a bit tight to get the end caps on. That's better. And then obviously with Ergon grips, they're kind of ergonomically designed, and so they've got little pointers so that you know which way to orientate them. Nice little touches. Lever angle is personal preference. I like running mine quite high. According to Deviate, you can get away with a standard length chain on this, even though it's got an idler. So you don't need to splice multiple chains together, which is quite nice. See how we get on. Just realised didn't set the stops on the chain on the rear mech before fitting the chain. So I'm going to just back the chain out from here and get the rear mech set up. On a rear mech, you've got this little piece here acting as a little sort of guide between the two cages, and a number of times that you end up getting the chain the wrong side of it and just need to pop it back through, because otherwise you'll be out on the trail and you're like, what's that noise? It's just there all the time, and then you'll realise, there we go, see, clears it. We've got the basics in, and now this is where the fine tuning starts, and it starts getting really fiddly. Get this up and around. So that's just my B tension I need to adjust, just to get a bit of extra clearance. TRP TR12 has this nice little chain length adjuster. I pull the chain together, you can see when they line up, and that shows me that I need to take one link out Chain tool, wind it in, make sure it's all lined up, and there we go. It's always nerve-wracking the first time you do that, but these chains are put together in a factory, so there's always going to be a bit of resistance there. Push those apart, locked in place. So now, start shifting up through the gears, hopefully. There we go, just like that. There we go. Check that I'm not going to shift into the spokes. Obviously there's kind of going to be a bit more adjustment needed on the first couple of rides. So the chain stretches, there's cable stretches in, beds in. First feel of the shifter is that that's a nice positive click. And we're coming down all the way. Lovely. Just trim the cable, pop a cable end on. Just slide that on. Let's do the internal routing of the dropper post. So this is the only bit of internal routing on the frame. So let's see how we get on. It should all be one continuous tube inside the frame. Just in case there are any bits that are going to foul it, I just pop the spoke in the end of the outer just to guide it up. And then, as if by magic, it's up! Ta-da! Pop it in there. This dropper's going to sit about there. I've run the Highlander dropper for a couple of years, and so I know that if I have the cable reasonably tight when the bars are sort of twisted around this way and pull the cable to the top of the seat post, I know that I can get away with trimming it here, and I don't need to measure. There are comprehensive instructions with the post itself. And just cut it like that. I know that I'm going to be okay. Put a ferrule, whatever, on the end. And now we get the dropper. And this is where Crank Brothers look like they've really just made everyone's life so much easier. Rather than having to worry with the old sort of twist grip and the screw-on attachment to the previous one and make sure it's all in line. It's just a case of just slotting the cable in there, and away we go. Now feed this through. Just keeping tension on it so it doesn't come apart. Slide it in to there. This is as good as it's always ever been. Slide that in there, just keeping the cable tensioned. And again, I'm just going to put this on finger tight because when the bike's off the stand, I'll get my final adjustments. Even more intriguing than why a cable ferrule is called a ferrule, why on earth is a cable narp called a narp? Give a prize for the best answer as to why a cable narp is called a cable narp and why a ferrule is called a ferrule. I'll leave the guys back in the office to deal with that one. But now that I've said it, it has to happen. We've got here the Crank Brothers mallet ELS. Got sort of cutaway bits, chamfers on the edges, adjustable pads so you can get a really tight interface with your shoe, pins as well for extra grip when you're not quite clipped in. Now, ceremonious moment of clipping the last piece off the fish wire. Forgot to say the LS is wider spindle, longer spindle, so it gives you a greater Q factor, feet slightly further apart for a more aggressive stance. And I think on a bike such as this, that is only fitting. I'm going to need to start working out for this bike. I can tell. Should probably take this moment to mention that this is being filmed and edited by Johnny at Fit for Racing HQ in Penrith. You can see this amazing space that they've got, and they've kind of let me take over it for the last couple of days. So yeah, big shout out to Johnny and Pat from Fit for Racing. Thanks very much, guys.
Cue B-roll.
Fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
Listen.
Modern biking technology is great that you could, someone like me who is not a professional mechanic can fit this stuff and it'll just work just like that. It's great. And that we can ride these bikes for miles and miles and miles up and down hills, all sorts of terrain, and they just work. And bikes are ace. That's basically why I'm doing this, because I love bikes and I like just getting to spend time with the bike, getting to know the bike as you build it, and learning how it all works and stuff all goes together. It's just ace. I just love riding bikes. I'm unashamedly like properly geeky. I just like riding bikes. They're great. I genuinely think that's it, we're done. So it's now time to take some pictures of it and go ride it.